So, welcome everybody. So this is an Ayn Rand University experience course where we're trying to give you a flavor of what we actually do behind the scenes when we're helping people learn, live, and advocate objectivism in Ayn Rand University. And this particular course, Philosophy, Work, and Business, was something that Tal, me, and Onkar Gate created. And the goal was, if you think about a core tenet of objectivism being build your life around a productive purpose, how do you do that? How do you figure out what your productive purpose should be? How do you achieve the kind of career that you want? The philosophy doesn't give you a lot of guidance for that. It gives you fundamental guidance, but there's a lot of other stuff you have to know. And so we wanted to create a course that was essentially a workshop where we were able to work with students to help them answer these key questions. And in particular, to focus on how do you choose the career path that will lead you to a fulfilling career? How do you build the skills necessary to succeed in that career path? And then, how do you plan? How do you set particular goals and move towards them in a really efficacious way? And so that's really the kind of vision that was driving the thinking behind the creation of this course. So, who are we to even be teaching such a course? Tal, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? And in particular, I mean, they know you're the CEO of ARI, but I don't know that everybody knows your kind of story about how you got here.
Yeah. I needed this course when I was 20. Nobody gave it to me, so I had to teach myself 20 years later how to do it right. So my story is that I was a very intellectual kid, always asking the big questions of life, fighting with my grandma on the concept of God at 6, 7 years old, fighting with my communist teachers in my kibbutz, the commune I was living in, pushing against the whole concept of the common good or the common anything. And then because nobody around me was as intellectual as I just decided I guess it's unimportant. So I gave up and became a pragmatist, and by that I mean just do what works, whatever works. So I went and became an engineer with software, and I was very good at it because I'm a smart person, so I can figure things out, and I got promoted, moved to the United States, was very successful, and then Atlas Shrugged hit me. Actually, I would say after Atlas Shrugged, the Fountainhead really hit me very hard because it showed me that I should be true to something that I was not true to, which is who am I, what do I love, what do I find meaning in, what do I want to do with my limited time here and energy, and it was not what I was doing. And doing that at 40 with three kids and a wife and a mortgage and everything around it was a very hard lesson. And so my whole journey and my whole passion about this became a passion of mine because I wanted to save people the mistakes, especially young people, the mistakes of making, turning to the wrong paths, not defining what the path is, not understanding the dynamics of who am I and what does the world have to offer, and the intersection of you and the world, which gives rise to the concept of meaning. So we always joke that Don made all the right decisions, I made all the wrong decisions. This is why it's a great partnership. But honestly, I've developed a passion for this. Part of what I do with the happiness team is part of that. And I would say one more thing about why I love this. When we decided to establish ARU, it was clear to us that one of the pillars of ARU would be application of objectivism, not just the concepts and understanding the knowledge, but applying it, thought and action. And this is part of the action. So hopefully we can give you some applicative information.
Yeah, and so my story is I discovered objectivism really young, and I knew from a really young age I wanted to be a writer if I could possibly make that happen. And I knew once I discovered objectivism that, man, to be able to write and to work at the Ayn Rand Institute, that would just be incredible. But I think what it did teach me a lot is there's not like there's no way that you can pursue that kind of career by following the career path. What's the career path to write about unpopular ideas? There just wasn't one. We're starting to create one. We are at ARU helping define a real trajectory that people can follow if they want to become a professional intellectual. But certainly in those days, I know I wrote the then executive director of the Ayn Rand Institute, Mike Berliner, when I was 16, and said, I love these ideas. What more can I do to get involved and get engaged? And he said, when you're in graduate school, come talk to us. And I didn't even know what graduate school was. So the main thing is I had to figure out how to carve that career path. And in the end, it was really ARI that helped me do that, which is I did not want to go into academia. I had no interest in kind of a scholarly career. And so for me, it was just studying objectivism, writing about it on my own, and then taking courses where I was able to learn how to do those things better. And so, I mean, my degree, for anybody who knows, was actually in, does anybody want to guess who doesn't already know?
Accounting.
It was in business. So it wasn't even sophisticated enough to be engineering. It was like, really, my thought process was, how can I get a degree without having to get a language credit? And I went to like a night school. Like, there's no credibility except for gaining knowledge and skills that were valuable in the market. And a lot of that was owed to the work that I put in and a lot of what ARI taught me. But that taught me an important lesson, that in the end, nobody cares about your credentials. They care about, can you help them solve their problem? Now, it's really hard to be in the stage as an intellectual where you can actually help people solve their problems. But if you can, that's really all that matters. And so I wrote for ARI for 11 years. I went off and worked with Alex Epstein at the Center for Industrial Progress, where we helped political leaders, business leaders advocate for energy freedom. And after I left Alex, I started doing communication coaching, because the one thing I could do was write and speak, and I helped people with their communication challenges. But a number of the clients that came to me were more interested, their bigger struggle was with, what do I want to do with my life? Or, I'm in a career and it's not going the way I want, can you help me with it? And it turned out that I was actually able to give them some useful advice, and I fell in love with that kind of coaching. And indeed, the reason I got brought back to ARI was because Tal wanted that, as he said, thought and action. We wanted to have coaches who were going to work with students one-on-one to build the lives and careers that they wanted. And so that's kind of what brought me back to ARI. And this course is really our most systematic way of bringing that coaching experience to the students. And so the students don't only get to hear from Tal, from me, we also bring in guests from across a range of different industries and backgrounds to share what it's like to work in their field and what they've learned about succeeding and building a fulfilling career. So, some of our guests have been Onkar. We've had John Allison from BB&T. We've had Alex Epstein, Keith Schacht, for those of you who know him, serial entrepreneur. Larry Salzman, who's on our board and is able to speak to law. We've had Ray Gurn and Matt Bateman to help the students understand what it is like to work in the education field. So we're really trying to give them the material that they need to help them make these crucial decisions and build the career that they want.
A good one was Mark Pellegrino, talking about what it means to forge a path into acting, which really phenomenal.
Yeah, so I mean, I wish I could have had, like you said, we built the experience that we wish we had. I wish I had been able to hear from professional intellectuals when I was younger. What should I be doing if not going to grad school? Because what I actually did was sit around and write on the internet until ARI said, come work for us. There was probably a better way. So what we want to do for this session, however, is I want to talk about 3 concepts that we cover in the course, just 3. And honestly, the basis on which I chose them was, these are the 3 that when we get feedback from the students about what really helped them, what hit home, they've described these concepts as real life changers for them. And so thought we'd share it with you, give you a taste of what it is to go through the process. And we'd like it to be interactive. So throughout there, we might be asking somebody to step into the spotlight, metaphorically, if not literally, and share some of kind of your work challenges, work struggles, work questions, and give you a flavor of what we do. So let's dive in and get started. And Tal, I want to turn this over to you. And this is really the concept of knowledge. And let me set it up this way. When you're trying to decide what you want to do with your career, whether that means when you're starting out or changing careers, I've talked to a lot of people, even at this conference, who raise the question of, like, well, how do I know how to make that decision? And so you have a really powerful framework that you've shared with our students. And so I'll turn this over to you, and maybe you can lead us through how you think about this.
Now, in order to think, I need to stand up.
Go for it.
Okay, so...
he doesn't usually ask me for permission to do anything, so that means a lot.
For the camera, they now have to follow me around, because I not only have to stand up, I have to pace. But, okay, so in very simple terms, in order for you to know clearly what it is that you want to do in life. And I'm talking to the 20-year-old who doesn't know anything about what the world has to offer and what they want to do. And I'm also talking to the 65-year-old who is, okay, now maybe I'll retire, but what now? What do I want to do with my time? Where do I want to dedicate? How do I want to express myself? So for me, it's all a matter of the intersection of two things, which is you, and the nature of you, and the knowledge of you, and the knowledge of the world. And the intersection of those two, if you know them both really well, is where the opportunities arise. The opportunities that will really carry meaning, so you can choose the paths that will reward you with self-esteem, self-expression, meaning, and happiness. And people, I know I did, jump into all kinds of paths, not knowing why. It's just reality brings opportunities to them, and they just grab them, hoping and wishing that this will be the path, only to find out 10, 20 years later, it's like, it made me money, it pays the bills, but meaning and self-expression. Think about the heroes in the culture, right? They always, we think about it, Steve Jobs. This is exactly what he did. At 20 years old, even before that, he couldn't care less about what people told him to do. He quit college, roamed around barefoot, and went into calligraphy and traveled to India just to try to figure out what's interesting to me. I am the center of the universe. I'm the most important person that I need to know. I need to put myself in different environments to see what resonates with me. So my first recommendation to a 20-year-old is take a decade. I don't care how long. It doesn't have to be a decade, but just to explore. And when I say explore, is explore yourself. Put yourself in different environments and treat it as a learning experience to see what carries meaning to you. And it needs to be very fine-tuned. It's not like, do I like investment? What type of investment? In what type of environment? Do you want to work alone? Do you want to work with people? What type, the more you get into a domain, there's like 100 different types of things you could be doing with it. So the whole process of finding your central purpose, and I'm, again, talking to the people who are retiring or in the middle of their career, wanted to think about what else can bring meaning to their lives. This is how you should think about it. How can I learn about myself? So I think about different levels. First, ask yourself, what carries meaning in my life? What is important to me? So that's kind of the meaning level. Then, from all of the things that I think are important in life, what will be awesome to do? Kind of developing a vision of what will a day in a life could look like a year from now, 2 years, 10 years from now, where I would say, this is worth spending my time on. This is worth spending my life on. And then from that, you move on to a mission level, which is what needs to be done to get to that vision? Who do I need to learn from? What environments do I need to be in? What knowledge do I need to acquire to then build the process by which I go from that vision to a reality? And then once you are clear, then you go and look at the tactics of the reality. What opportunities? Who do I know that can connect me to the best person in that domain that I can learn from? How can I actually then, only then, look at the opportunities in front of me and choose the right ones? You are now ready to then pick the right choice. If you don't do the preliminary work, then you're stumbling on things without really knowing that it's coming from you outside. But that's not enough. That's just the axis of knowing yourself. There's the axis of knowing the world. You don't know what the scope of the buffet is. So people, when I hear, it's like, yeah, I'm running my dad's business. What is the probability that your dad's business is going to be the source of joy and fulfillment for you? Almost zero. Because it was never chosen. So throwing out, and that, by the way, this is especially for the young people in the room. You don't know what's possible. You think you love things because those were the things you were exposed to, but the world is much bigger than that. You know, in the Israeli culture, there's this thing, and people don't understand where it comes from, of after the army, I'm going to spend a year traveling the world. I love that. I've learned so much by traveling India and traveling, Thailand, and then traveling Africa. When I came back a year later, I had a perspective of like, I could be doing so many things in so many places, and there are people who have different ways of expressing themselves. I was much, much richer. But it's not only traveling, it's like traveling the world of business. And my 22-year-old now, I told her that go work in, hospitality, and go be a waiter for a little while, and then go try something else, and then move to the West Coast and try. Take the time to really understand the scope of what's available. Okay, so again, allowing yourself to know who you are, and with that, and those are not separated, it's two facets of the same thing, but understanding the world and then choosing the opportunities that make more sense. So this is in a way like a framework to find your real central purpose.
Yeah, and just one point that Onkar Ghate has made that I think is really profound on this point of central purpose that I think aligns with what you're talking about, Tal, is like when you're young and you don't know a lot about yourself and you don't know a lot about the world, your central purpose should probably just be work. Like, it's not sitting in your bedroom coming up with, well, I'm going to change this kind of industry, be in this kind of position. It's, no, go out there and work. Actually gain the experience of learning about how to produce, what you like, what you don't like, what kind of skills you might want to develop. But that a central purpose can be very broad, and then part of what happens is you gain the knowledge of the world and yourself is that it can narrow and become more specific over time until, you're Tal saying like, my goal is to grow ARI to such and such size by this year. Or I don't know exactly how you hold your central purpose.
Change the world. Nothing less than change the world. Yeah.
Fair enough. And so one thought I had, maybe we could do this. If anybody is currently thinking about this kind of issue of what do I want to do or what kind of career change I have, is there anybody who's kind of in that place right now? Anybody want to volunteer to kind of go back and forth with Tal and what you're finding challenging thinking about that? And
now be brave, come on. Who wants to do a little bit of real-time thinking?
This is free consulting.
Okay. Come on over.
Do you know what I used to charge people for this?
Okay, come on over. Yeah, come on stage. Is this microphone working? The podium one? Yeah, okay. So as long as you stay here, it'll be good. So what's your name?
Hi, I'm Daniel.
Daniel. How old are you?
I am 29.
29. What do you do?
I work in strategy at Google.
Strategy at Google. What kind of strategy? They have so many.
Yeah, I'm part of like a small central team that does special projects across platforms and devices, Android, Chrome, our phones, that sort of thing.
Okay, so what the day in the life looks like?
It's pretty varied. A lot of like analysis of data, trying to tell a story, presenting, it's very like, I used to be a consultant. So it's like consulting for different teams at Google.
Okay. How did you get there? So tell us a little bit of the trajectory that led you there.
Yeah, so I studied physics and neuroscience in college. Initially planned to go to medical school, but got interested in business and entrepreneurship, was scared of like the specialization of medicine. And so I wanted to explore the business world, so I went into management consulting after college, did that for a few years, was kind of burned out by the lifestyle and wasn't too interested in the work. So I went to Google thinking technology would be more interesting. Then eventually wanted to do entrepreneurship. So after like a year of that, started a startup in the logistics space. Did not like that experience.
Why?
A lot of reasons. It was very blue collar. I was like managing truck drivers. Was not the right thing for me.
Okay.
I did that for a year. Then I came back to Google. Now I've been back there for a year.
Okay.
The job is great, very interesting, but doesn't feel like my real passion.
Okay. So let me throw some very big questions at you. From everything you know about yourself, from the time you were a kid, what were the things that you found interesting, important, where you lose time doing? Give me ideas all the way from first memories of what got you interested, teenage years, and so on.
So I really loved like big ideas. So philosophy, ideas in politics, ideas about like the meaning of life. Also science, like biology, physics.
Tell me how that manifested itself when you were a kid or a teenager.
Constantly reading new things and wanting to have conversations with people all the time about like big ideas.
Okay. And by the way, you're in a conference about ideas. How amazing that. Okay, so, and then what? When you started thinking about what you want to do as an adult, what were the things that attracted you? Did anything translate from the things you loved as a teenager into the world of business and career?
Yeah, I think.
By the way, why medicine? Were you at any time interested in biology and
extremely interested in biology? Okay. And still am.
So why aren't you an MD right now?
I've been asking myself that question.
Okay.
I think my sort of initial thinking when I went to the business world, I was very inspired by the way Elon Musk had such a grand vision of what he wanted to do with the world. And I had a vision of, I was going to go into business and I was going to combine it with science to like run an institute that cures aging, like something huge within medicine. Okay. That was sort of what I envisioned.
Tell me about your fascination with biology and the human body. Concretize it for me.
So I think when I first started learning biology and I learned the way you could learn the most fundamental aspects of molecular biology and how that gives rise to, like the way a cell can harness energy, and then that somehow gives rise to an entire human life. I found that extremely fascinating.
Okay. And when did you start get interested in business strategy?
I was interested in the impact that you can have through like entrepreneurship and running companies.
Let's pause.
Yeah.
So he gave me two answers. One is why he's interested in biology, and the other one is why he's interested in strategy. Who thinks he's more interested in biology than, okay, look at it. Who thinks he's really interested in strategy? One person, okay. Let's talk about it later. And he's working in? Okay. So why do you think there's this, I don't know, you describe how you feel about your job right now.
It's like decent.
It's okay. Can't complain. Pays the bills.
Yeah, people are nice. I have fun like being in meetings.
Would you like to feel that way about your job? No, there's so much more, right? So let's work this together. I mean, we talked about a model where you know yourself and you pay attention to those things. You develop a very introspective attitude because this is important. This is critical information about yourself. We don't want to get it wrong. How many years have you been doing what you're doing right now?
I mean, this type of thing for like 7 years.
Okay. 7 years went by and you're in a place if I can rewind the clock and ask you, do you want to be there in 7 years? The answer would be probably not. I want to be, okay. So we're here and we want to make another decision moving forward. So biology, and I'm not sure that maybe the reason why you know, is it biology or is it being a doctor? Because what I heard is the cell and what's going on. I didn't hear trauma and ER and fixing people and So tell me a little bit. Let's zoom into this thing of biology that it seems like you're interested in.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure because I think I'm really interested in like molecular biology, the cell, but I'm also really interested in like health of people, fitness, mental health, like all, I don't know, so many different levels of how humans function.
Okay. So if I asked you to figure out what type of job you'll be expressed through the most, what kind of process you think you need to do in order to get there? Because there's a lot of, being a molecular biologist and an ER doctor is completely different paths that will lead to completely different, expressions. So how are you going to figure this out?
So I've been trying to have conversations with a lot of people doing these types of different things.
Right.
I think I've also been trying to dig into the different topics that I'm interested in. So learning more about philosophy, more biology, more neuroscience, and trying to see what I feel most passionate about to sort of keep working on.
Okay. And where is it leading you right now? What do you think is the decisions that are in front of you?
I feel like where it's leading me is that I'm very interested in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I think I'm scared of sort of digging into one thing and then missing out on everything else. Because I'm not sure, like, what's the thing that's really worth committing so much of my life to.
So for me, this is a sign, the fear of missing out. I cannot choose. There's a whole book about it called Refuse to Choose. There's a lot of people and there's a lot of professions where you don't have to choose one thing and dive into it for the rest of your life. Those are lines of work where you dig into something and then keep on digging on something else and you move from one thing to another. There are many lines of businesses that will reward that. But you started talking about, you were talking to people. Are you doing a little bit of introspection of like, I want to kind of dive to the essence of what it is in molecular biology that I love. Do you know how to do that? Can you figure out how to touch the essence of like, if somebody gave me a job doing this, I would do it for the rest of my life and would never have another motivational crisis ever again. Do you think you can find something like that in you?
Yeah, I believe it's possible. I'm not sure I know exactly how to do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what Daniel is giving us is an example of I know that something needs to change. I'm planning my change, and I'm going to do my best to talk to people, do some research and so on and so forth. And then what's going to happen? I guess maybe go back to school, change a line of job. What do you think is ahead of you? What it's going to look like?
I'm not sure. I'm hoping it doesn't involve going back to school because I don't want to give up making money. I'm worried about that.
We're going to spend an hour talking about this. But okay. Thank you very much for taking the time. Okay. So look, my standard for your work is a standard of a Howard work, nothing less. I want you to write the heroic story of your life to the most expressive path that you can take. If you are that serious, then the type of work that needs to be done in order to figure out what your architecture is needs to be serious work. So all the distractions, like I'm making too much money right now, it's too good, it's too comfortable, maybe I don't want to go back to school, those are all not so good signs for me, because you need to understand that once you find the thing that is going to make you the most you, like Howard Roark is to his architecture, then there's no question. There's no lack of motivation of what do I need to do in order to get there. If it's another 7 years of school, I will do it. And breaking walls and getting out of my shell to go meet people and do the research, I will do it. But the essence of it all is that you have to do the heavy lifting of figuring out the thing that you say, if you give me this to do, and somebody will pay me to do that, sign me up. Not for the rest of my life. Who knows? You have free will, things can change. But at least for the foreseeable future. And so don't let yourself get distracted with the money, the comfort, the Google brand, or whatever that is. Your job right now is to figure out what gives you meaning? What will be the vehicle that will guide you towards your happiness and your fulfillment? And it's critical. It's a question of not life and death, but life and not so good, an amazing life and an okay life. And for me, that is the work that needs to be done. So this is what we do with our students. We don't let them, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. I chose this because this happened. I think what you need to realize is the reason why you went to strategies, it was, interesting, but it was not the thing. You went forward too fast without conviction that this is my thing. You were not patient enough. I'm just, hypothesizing right now. You were not patient enough. You didn't give yourself the time. You didn't develop the curiosity to say, wait a second, before I jump on this, of consulting and going to Google and starting strategy. Is it what I want to do? And for me, it's a step forward and a step back, half a step back. What did I learn from this? Not the most important thing. Maybe I just extract what I loved about this, take out the things I didn't love. What can I construct to learn about this thing, my passion? It's a path that you need to forge, you need to develop, right? Like Don said, it's an entrepreneurial journey that you need to develop. So again, thank you for sharing that, and I hope you got a little bit of what we're doing with our students through this. Now you.
All right, so I want to turn then to the next topic, and this is the concept of mastery. And a really good question is, when people do know what career they want to choose, when they are all in on, this is my vision, this is my goal, what explains failure? And I don't think there's one explanation across the board. Does anybody want to take a guess? Or not a guess. There's, like I said, there's different possible answers. What are some reasons that you think people fail to achieve the career that they want? And if you say lack of mastery, that's not exactly what... Right, yeah, go ahead. Lack of focus, lack of confidence, lack of... What do you mean by lack of information?
So you don't have the motivation? No, we're talking. The question here. Let me just be specific. Why do people fail in the specific job when they're trying to apply themselves in what they know is meaningful to them? So they try and they fail.
Yeah, because I don't view getting what you want and realizing, it's not what I want. That's not a failure. That's learning and feedback, as long as you take it and go into a different scenario. But Eileen,
yeah. Then you don't know. Yep.
Yeah, so fear of asking questions, but I think the larger thing is like intellectual honesty with yourself and others. We'll take one or two more. Abton. Lack of early wins, gotcha.
Having no grit.
No grit? What do you consider grit to be?
Essentially what Angela referred to, the ability to bounce back from failure.
Got it. So I think all of those capture points that I agree with, I think all of those can be barriers. I want to point to one, though, that I see come up again and again and is kind of obvious once mentioned, but really valuable to make explicit. And that is, they're just not good enough. So I have coached a lot of writers, and they'll ask all, like, how do you build a writing career, and how do I get people to join my Substack, and how do I get my book published? And there's lots to say about the tactics of all of that stuff. But when I read the writing, the thing that often jumps out at me is it's not good enough. They don't yet have the capability of creating something genuinely of value. And think about the contrast. If you want to be a writer and you are the strongest writer in the world, do you have any doubt that like you could build like the exact writing career that you want? If you want to go into medicine and you're an incredible surgeon, are you going to be able to design a medical career that's really fulfilling for you? In any field, the kind of precondition of having the career that you want is being highly skilled at it. And so this is the concept of mastery. The concept is, how do I actually go about acquiring the skills so that I can so that I can have the career that I want. So I have the opportunities that I want to take advantage of. I can work with the people that I want to work with on the problems that I want to work with them on, so that I have the money so that I can enjoy the career. I mean, one of the things is I love being a writer, and I would do it at very little money, but it would not be as fulfilling if I was constantly worried about, like, am I going to be able to pay my mortgage? So you can't overstate the value of being able to become really good in the field. And indeed, a lot of the enjoyment of your work is that feeling of efficacy, of I'm getting better and better and able to tackle more and more ambitious goals. So I'm going to...
Can you put the slide up, please? Thanks.
So I'm not giving kind of an A to Z formula for this, but 3 aspects of pursuing mastery that I found really valuable in my career. So the first one I put is identify. And that is, it's reverse engineering what success looks like through mentors and models. And a model, I think of as, it's a role model. It's somebody, I might not know them, but they've done what I want to do already in some form. So if I want to be a writer, part of what I'm thinking about is other people writing. In particular, if I wanted to be an objectivist writer, I'd be thinking about people who've written on objectivist ideas. I'd also be thinking about people who are more culturally successful, writing about ideas out of the mainstream. But I'm looking at, like, well, how did they get where they went? And there's a certain art to this. I remember when I was in high school, I was like, well, I want to be an opinion writer. So what I need to do is go work at a newspaper and do journalism for 10 years, and then I can move to the opinion section. Little did I know that newspapers were not really going to exist in the form that I thought. And so it was like I was looking at a pattern of success that held, a decade or two earlier, but was rapidly changing. So you want to be careful, but that there's people who've solved some form of the problem you're trying to solve in most cases. And what can you learn from that as the kind of basic path that you're going to follow towards building the rare and valuable skills that are going to allow you to have the career that you want? Mentors, I think of as they're role models who you can talk to, right? So I not only was able to look at thinking about being an objectivist intellectual, I wasn't able to just look at Ayn Rand or Leonard Peikoff, but I got to work with and get personalized feedback from people like Yaron Brook and Onkar Ghate and Alex Epstein. And as I've talked about earlier today in a different session, one of the reasons why mentors are so useful is it's really hard to spot your own blind spots. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can just kind of figure out on your own. But figuring out, where am I weak that I don't know? You can answer it, but it's really, really hard. And mentors can be incredibly valuable at helping you identify. I mean, one of the things right now is we talked about, like, you can pick careers where it's not just one thing for 30 years, right? Like, my career is involved doing lots of different things. Right now, I'm doing I'm doing marketing and fundraising for ARI, and one of the things that's been super helpful is that Tal, our COO, Carla, they're able to give me a lot of feedback on like, hey, you're trying to build these new skill sets. This is what's going well. This is where you could be going better. And it, will hopefully shave years off my learning curve. And so just identifying what should I be working towards, what would mastery actually consist of, is the kind of starting point for its pursuit. And then the second is practice. That is, to build the actual rare and valuable skills that I've identified, I need to actually do the work. Now, in the social psychology literature, deliberate practice has like a very well-defined meaning. I'm using it more broadly of like actually just doing work to build those skills and getting feedback from others or from reality. So, for instance, when I write something and give it to Alon Giorno to edit, like that's literal feedback that's helping me improve my skill set in the realm of writing. You want to be thinking about how do I actually practice these skills that I'm trying to build? And often it requires being creative. For certain fields like medicine, they have a very worked out methodology for helping you practice certain skills, right? You don't just go on and they say, there's a heart, have at it. Like, they have very deliberate process that's going to build you towards doing it. The winner of our talent show, Cassie Dick, I don't know if she's here. Well, she took the whole class, so hopefully she's not here. But she's getting her pilot's license, and I was talking to her about the process that she went through because she just landed a plane by herself for the first time. And it's these little steps where, for instance, like you're bringing the wheels down and then touching up for a while, and then eventually it's, all right, you get to do it, but we're going to stay on the ground this time. So it's looking for whatever practice is that will allow you to build up those skills. But a key component of it is it has to involve feedback. And I think about writers, because that's obviously the field that I know the best. You could write for a decade, but if all you did was just put words up on Substack and didn't pay attention to how many views you were getting, didn't pay attention to people writing you and saying that was not interesting, not paying attention to feedback from people in the field, you're not necessarily going to improve. I mean, how many of us drive? How many people have been driving for more than 10 years? Shouldn't we all be elite NASCAR level drivers? We have decades of experience, right? But you're not pushing yourself to develop new skills. You're not getting feedback and guidance from instructors. Now, contrast that, Tal, you've invested a lot of time and money on race car driving skills, and I'm guessing that you had some mentors to say, hey, Tal, you're going to die if you keep doing what you're doing.
I just paid a guy $1,500 for a day to shave off about a tenth in a lap that I do in a racetrack. Yeah, and it was a wild success, by the way. So, yeah.
Frankly, I don't know that I want the CEO of the Ayn Rand Institute doing anything with any kind of risk profile, but Tal owns his own life, and alas. And finally, explore. And what I mean by this is that you reach a certain point where you can no longer really rely on the paths that other people have tread before you. You can still learn a lot from your role models and your mentors, but you need to put your skills to work on something new, on pushing the boundaries. The startup we heard about it, like, curing aging or something. Like, there is no path for that. There's a path for solving big, hard problems like that. There's a path for learning certain pieces of the puzzle, but for actually solving the problem, like, that is something that requires new creativity. And I remember, one of my major mentors I mentioned was Alex Epstein, but I, reached a point where I had been working with him for a few years, and part of the issue I faced is, well, I don't want to do this exact work, right? I don't want to be like a crappier version of Alex. I want to be like the best version of Don, and so part of what I had to do is, okay, I need to go in a different direction and really figure out my vision for how do I uniquely like communicating? What kind of issues do I uniquely like speaking on? And it required a lot of innovation. Like, I mean, anybody here read Effective Egoism? I mean, if you've read it, I'm not, whether you liked it or not, hopefully you'll at least admit, like it's a different kind of philosophy book. It's not what objectivists have written about ethics before. It takes a different approach. And it was, instead of sitting down and saying, how do I repeat what Ayn Rand said in a less eloquent way, it was, what kind of book would I want to read about philosophy that doesn't exist? And so Explore is really pushing yourself to put your skills to new uses and to pioneer new skills that you didn't even think you need or have to develop. And so the net result of this is just a high capability that then allows you to design a career that you find uniquely fulfilling. And Tal, if you have any thoughts
I want to
on that.
add something. So this is the second step of mastery, but just pay attention to how important it is to choose the right thing, because in order to go through all of those three stages, you have to have motivation to push through the hardship of trying and failing and trying again and practicing and practicing and practicing. If it's not something that you truly, authentically love, it's going to be a drag. And you get stuck in the middle somewhere, being an average on something. And then you ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Which leads us, I think, to the third main point, which is you have to think entrepreneurially. I mean, each and every one of you is an entrepreneur of your life. You don't have to create new businesses and take a lot of risk. Not all of us are structured to take a large amount of risk and venture out with no, prospect of a paycheck. I know that was really hard for me, but that's not what the kind of entrepreneur that I'm talking about. I'm talking about forging the unique path that is yours. Nobody will ever live the type of life that you're living, because you're a very unique person that has a very unique identity at what you love and why you love those things. And so without connecting to something that is intrinsically motivating and important to you, you'll never be the best that you can be in it. You don't have to be a freak of nature like an Elon Musk. And a lot of people think, how can I be like him? You don't have to be. You have, like an Elon Musk, you have to be the best version of you. The question is, do you know what it is? And can you choose the path that doesn't require you to, search for motivation on a Monday morning to get out of bed and do it again? It's like, what are you talking about? Making ARI better and more impactful, going to the racetrack, playing my drums or whatever that is. I will do it all day long, the whole day, the whole week if I had more time. And if you have that sense of motivation, then you need to forge your path forward to get the world to offer you something that will allow you to do this. And so when I say an entrepreneur, is to get to the point where somebody pays you or you pay yourself or whatever it takes to do the things that you think is the most important thing in the world. Because, by the way, the chances that nobody will think that what you think is the most important thing in the world is worth anything is zero. You have to be so irrational to find something that is clearly meaningful, a value that you can bring to the world. There is someone somewhere who will pay you, and maybe pay you a lot of money, more than what you think, to do the thing that you want to be the best at. So this is how I connect the motivational aspect, the mastery aspect, into this idea of forging your own path which will forever be just the one path that you take for yourself. So, and there's a lot to be said about the change management, the anxiety that comes with forging a new path, because it doesn't come natural to us to be entrepreneurial enough, take some risk and saying, no, that's the type of work I want. I do need to go back to school. I'm looking at you, Dan. I do need, by the way, I wanted to tell you something, which the reason why everybody voted, because it's very easy for people from the outside to see the level of energy and passion that you exert when you're true to a value, right? And so use other people to help you guide yourself to the something that you say, wow, true, this is something I would love to do for years and years to come. Again, and you said it yourself, I want to be a writer, and then I find something more interesting and something more interesting. And by the way, it's in parallel in things that have to do with work and relationships and hobbies and so on and so forth. But as far as central purpose goes, you cannot be the best at something if it's not intrinsically meaningful to you. And then the mastery aspect, and then the third thing is that you have to be creative in how you make your world enable your passion to manifest itself. And this is where I think seek out some ideas, like who can pay me to do this? This is, and the more specific you are about the type of thing you want to do, I think it's clear that you're closer to figuring it out and making it so concrete that people will connect with you and will enable you to do what you want to do. So you'll have to get out of the comfort zone of a paycheck and being stuck in Google, and doing the same thing over and over again without the passion to get better and do the best you can.
Yeah, and let me put this point in more philosophic terms. What an entrepreneurial mindset is it's thinking about the ends, not just the means. So the kind of conventional way of thinking about it is, all right, there's careers out there that are valuable, and there's a career path then for the career. And that's like how Peter Keating thinks about his career. Okay, well, architecture is everybody thinks highly of architects. My mama thinks very highly of architects. And then there's a career path. I got to go to this school, and then I got to take this kind of job, and then I work my way up through these means. But he's never asking, like, what am I after? Why am I doing all this? What actually is rewarding and meaningful for me? And so being what an entrepreneur, though, part of what they're thinking about is the end. They're thinking, like, I want something to exist in the world. I'm not just looking around and accepting what's here. I'm thinking about what could be here. What do I want to be here? What do I want to create? And so it's rationality about ends, not only means. And that's what Howard Roark is doing, right? He's thinking about, what do I want the world to look like? What would actually be meaningful to me? And then he's thinking about, in a first-handed way, not, well, what are people supposed to do? He thinks about, what do I need to do in reality to get to where I want to get? So it's not, what's the most prestigious next step? He thinks, yeah, I have some skills, but I don't have all the knowledge and skills I need to build the kind of buildings I want to build. Who do I respect? Who's a mentor that I could work for that would help me gain mastery so that I can build and the kind of buildings I want to get? And so it's that kind of first-handed thinking about both ends and means that is distinctive of an entrepreneur. And it's the sense in which we are all entrepreneurs. And so part of what I think about, that is distinctive about entrepreneurs, some more concrete ways that this shows up, is that you're customer focused. And what I mean is that you're value focused. Roark isn't thinking about, I want to be, I don't want architect on my door. I don't want people to go, that guy's an architect. It's I want to build. And what build means is that there's a value being created for a customer and trade. And so even if you're working for somebody else, and you're not concerned with the end user of a product, customer focus still exists. A lot of what I talked with coaching clients is, you do have a customer, it's your boss. Part of what you should be doing to be a really effective employee is not just thinking about, what is my boss telling me, but what does my boss need? How can I actually be helpful to them? So part of what I think about, working with Tal is, not what is Tal telling me to do, but what are his priorities? And what are the problems that he's running into that overlap with what I do? And so suggesting, like, hey, would this be helpful? Or, hey, I solved this problem for you. You're thinking about the customer and their needs, not just, well, these are the things that one is supposed to do in this role. And it's years ago, I asked Alex Epstein when I was working for him a question that I was certain he wouldn't have a good answer for. I said, you're so innovative. How do you innovate? And I was like, that's kind of a dumb question. Like, what are you going to say? Oh, well, I come up with new ideas. But he said something really interesting. He said, I think about the customer. Because he doesn't start with, well, this is how we did these kind of reports for customers last time. And so then, well, let me just do the same thing over and over again. He thinks, what does the customer actually need? And therefore, how can I do a better job of giving it? And it was that was the path to innovation. And kind of related to that is results focused, which is I'm not, as an entrepreneur, and when I went out, I thought I understood this point. But until you do it yourself, I don't think you really can. The difference between going to work and knowing that if they don't fire me, I get a paycheck at the end of the week, versus waking up and knowing that if I don't deliver results, I'm not going to get a paycheck. There's something about working for yourself and leading a business that really inculcates the idea of, my customer doesn't care that I showed up for 10 hours. He would be perfectly content if it took me 2 minutes as long as I solved the problem. So if you think about a salesperson, I don't care that you went on 100 sales calls. Did any of them result in sales? Well, if not, that's a big problem. And so being focused on not I check the boxes, but how do I get the result? Again, it's going to push you to be more innovative because you realize at the end of the day, even if I did everything right, if I didn't get the result, I didn't get the result. And so being results focused is crucial. And then, well, if I'm after the result and I'm thinking about the customer, then the way that I'm going to arrive at actual solutions that get me the result is going to be resourceful. I'm going to look at every possible avenue I can to get what I want. I'm going to try everything that I can figure out to try to get the result that I need. So that's kind of at a high level, the kind of mindset that I think all of us can take in the pursuit of our career. The mastery is kind of building the skills that we can deploy in an entrepreneurial way, and then hopefully we're deploying them in a path that's directed towards something genuinely fulfilling that we get to by thinking about the world and ourselves. And so I want Tal, I was hoping you could kind of bring this all together and wrap up, like, from your perspective, what is the thing that you really want them to come away with and the people who go through our course to come away with?
Yeah, I just kind of, to close on the entrepreneurial mindset, when I say all of us are entrepreneurs, you need to take that seriously. You can be working for a company, save paycheck, and so on and so forth. But again, this is a recipe for stagnation if you don't wake up every day loving what you do, and exactly as Don said, thinking about what am I solving? What is the value that I bring to the world? If you don't see the connection between your work and something in reality that adds value to someone, then you're rationalizing. I don't like it when I hear young people say, you know what, I'm going to do what I do and I don't care if anyone consumes it. That's a rationalization because you're not really creating a value. You're thinking like, I'm doing it for myself. So but you're not getting the full context. And imagine if you kept on producing things and nobody would ever touch it, feel it, enjoy it. What kind of feedback would you have? So for me, that's a rationalization. It's not here. It's not in the real world. You need to see yourself manifested, and part of it is people enjoying the value of what you produce. So be serious about being entrepreneurial. It's get out of your comfort zone. Ask yourself, within what I do right now, is it what I want to do? If it is, how can I? And Don gave, I was always entrepreneurial in a 22,000 people company. I broke the rules. I tried new things. I remember one time they told me, this is the product you need to sell, and go sell it to schools. Okay, so I went to schools and I sold it. It was an SAT prep product, and I sold it to this high school and this high school and this high school. And after I sold it to like 5 of them, I was like, why am I selling to high schools? Let me sell it to the municipality. They can make a decision on 100 schools. I went and talked to the Department of Education. They said, that's a great idea. They went with a bid, of course, because it was my idea, I won it. And I sold 100 schools in one sales activity. And it blew my boss's mind. It's like, what did you just do? Right? And so thinking about, again, concretizing, what is the value that I'm doing? To whom? And how can I make it better? And the creativity will lead you into amazing ways in discovering what you're able to do. Let's start kind of putting it all together. Your only duty in life is to be happy, to express yourself in the best possible way and write your hero's journey. And we want you to live an interesting life because we want to get inspired by your hero's journey. And have you ever seen a hero's journey or a story that doesn't have challenges and strain and, obstacles? If it's like that, it's not an interesting story. And the whole fuel for the entire story is that the hero wants something really bad. So ask yourself before you embark on your next, journey, what is it that I'm passionate about? What is it that I want so bad that I will withstand everything in front of me? I will strategize how to overcome every obstacle and resist the fear of failure and ridicule and everything that comes. By the way, a lot of the obstacles, even in the best stories, are internal, right? It's like, what do I have to go through and convince myself that this is the hardest thing of creating a new company for me? You know what it was?
No.
To quit the job I was in before. Honestly, once I made that decision, the rest was much easier. But the amount of work I had to do to get myself to leave the golden cage I was in was the hardest thing. So first, look at the fuel that fuels all of that thing. Make sure it's worth it. It's worth it. And then go and give it all. Give it all. You have one chance to live an amazing life. Find the thing that fuels everything. Master it. Be entrepreneurial. Break the rules. Find and seek other people that are, and I think there's something so powerful in finding someone who does what you want to do. They concretize for you what it looks like. I'll give you an example for my hobby, which is drumming. The first time I laid my eyes on a drummer named Dave Weckl, who's the drummer for Chick Corea, there was a whole world that opened up of what can you do musically with a set of drums. And I felt like if I ever can get in front of that person, and I did. After I moved to the United States, the first thing I did is register with one of his clinics. And just being there in front of this master, regardless of the fact that I'll never be as good as he is, so talented, dedicated his life to it, but just being in the same space as someone who took it to the extreme was one of the best memories of my life, I think, ever. Those people seek the people who are doing what it is that you try to do, or as close as possible to what you're doing, and try to learn as much as possible. And you'll learn that your path towards that is going to be completely different than theirs. This is why you have to be entrepreneurial, but at least kind of concretizing and using it as more motivation towards that. So find the fuel, master it, and motivate yourself to go through everything and kind of forge your own path towards it with all the difficulties. And please use other people. Use other people to support you. This is why I made it a happiness team and not a happiness one-on-one coaching, which I believe that other people, once they see the passion in you, they really want to help you. They really want to help you materialize it. By the way, this is why it's not a good idea to consult with your family, because they're really involved in what. If you want to take a big risk, ask people that you don't know. And they will tell you, of course, what are you talking about? Just do it. And but what about this and what about that? What are you talking about? So for Daniel, okay? For me, there's no question about what you need to do next as far as exploring your passion. I'm sure you have 100 questions about how do I do it and so on and so forth, but I'm removed from you. I will bear no consequences if you fail and fall on your face, right? But I see something objectively, which is you just showed me what you're interested in and showed me something you're interested less in, and I really want you to succeed. So my advice for you is go for it. I don't care if you run out of money and you go into debt. That's part of the deal, right? I hope you don't. I hope you make billions of dollars and give all that money to ARU. But that's the story I want for you. So this is why we tend to kind of keep it all to ourselves and so on. share it with other people. Tell them, this is what I want to do. And now, don't take anyone's advice on how to do it because they don't know you as well. But lean on them for support and to especially remind you what you said you want to do.
So I hope that gives you a flavor of what we do for ARU. Now, you have a really great opportunity to study with us. Anybody can study with us full-time by joining ARU. Come talk to me afterwards, or a member of the ARU sales team. Is there anybody in the room? Amanda right there in the very back. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. And maybe you don't think that, this course is for me. I'm in retirement and I have everything I need to know.
I had people in their 60s telling me that was the best course they've ever taken because it convinced them to go and commit to the next thing that they found the most meaningful to them.
Yeah.
So it's truly not just for 20-year-olds.
No, definitely. But if you do want to help those 20-year-olds, I had a student come up to me actually earlier today and give me a gift because of what he got from our philosophy work and business thing.
What did you get?
I make less than you, so.
Fair enough.
It really is life-changing, and I think part of the life-changing is you can think of it wider than that they have a better career than they might otherwise have. It's one of the reasons I think people lose their idealism is that they settle in some area in life. Maybe it's relationships, but often it's work. And once they settle there, maintaining their commitment to ideals, it does not last very long, or it's very, very hard to maintain that commitment. And so if you wonder, what is one way that people can become even more committed to their ideals, more committed to the values that Objectivism holds, helping them solve this problem of career, it has just enormous upside. So feel free, financially supporting ARI so that we can give those scholarships to young people is another thing that I hope you'll take the time to consider.
I want to say one more thing, which is something that we share with our student. I do that in the happiness team as well. I want to give you an idea of the reward. Okay, why it's worth all of it. For me, what I do now, finding my central purpose, I'm not afraid of anything. Take all my money, take all my possessions, introduce new obstacles that I don't have. I'm not giving up. I'm doing what I do. And so the conviction, and think about a Howard Rourke in the sense that, can you convince him to change a line of work? He will go to the quarry if he needs to, but you cannot set him off course. The reward of doing that hard work, and a lot of it is mental, a lot of it is psychological, is you will become that kind of person who will be has so much conviction, so much clarity on what they want and who they want to be, that you really nothing can hurt you, and that's a very powerful thing.
Well, thank you, and we have about 20 minutes left for questions.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. I have a question. You guys alluded to this multiple times about once you find your thing most recently, but I guess prior to this talk, the big question I had was, how do you balance introspection with taking action and executing on things? So that's the biggest obstacle I have, transitioning from my work being defined by others to wanting to define my own work. So I set goals, but then I'm like, do I really want to do that? And I feel like sometimes I do too much introspection, not enough execution, and I don't move forward.
Well, this reminds me of the point you make about the dance floor and the balcony. So maybe you should talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, it's a great question. There are two mindsets that I have. One is I think about what I want to do. I come to conclusions, right? And then I go from the balcony to the dance floor. And when I'm in the dance floor, I'm in the dance floor. I'm trying my best. I improvise sometimes and so on. And then I take all that knowledge and I move back to the balcony to think about it. I don't see it as two separate things. It's one part of one cycle of learning more in order to act better. It's all for the action. It's all for the dance floor. And the thinking is just reflecting and how can I do that? There's one aspect which is not. I do a lot of deriving self-esteem and the reward by introspection, which is an end in itself. But otherwise, for me, it's a continuous thing. Another thing I would say, you don't have to introspect if there's no issue. If you're doing and you're in the flow and everything's working, keep on doing. It's your happiness and the joy is in the doing, right? If something doesn't work and there's a contradiction, there's a conflict, go out and go back to the balcony and do your thinking about what works, what doesn't work, and so on. But always towards the goal of better action, better decisions, and more happiness.
Yeah, and just to kind of underline it, because you put it as how do you bounce them?
Yes.
And almost always when you're talking about bouncing things, it's a wrong conceptualization. Mm-hmm. Like when people, how do I bounce selfishness and altruism? It's you kick altruism off the scale and all you do is pursue your interests. It means that they haven't gotten the alternatives quite right. And so it's not an issue of bouncing, but there is an issue of when something should be at the forefront of your mind and your focus. And so the way I think about it is I'm going to step back and think about what I should be doing when I see the need to, and I'm going to dive in when otherwise, right? Like I'm acting until I see the need to do it. Now I'm always monitoring. I'm always thinking about what I'm doing and prodding it and so on. But it's based on, do I actually see the need? There's not like some recipe other than, yeah, I see a need or I have a purpose for taking a certain approach to what I'm engaged in.
And sometimes what I call a bias for action is if I don't know how to answer that question in my mind, I throw myself back on the dance floor and I see what happens and I gain more knowledge and more information in order to know more. I don't let myself get stuck in my head, which is what a lot of people do. It's like, I don't know, and they get into this analysis paralysis. If you don't know, do. Go ahead and do, try, fail, try again, fail. You'll learn more doing that than getting stuck in your head.
Okay, thank you. I guess, sorry, since this question is so important to me, I just want to rest it. So this cues that you mentioned, there's no framework or something to follow, right? It's like internal cues where like when you're on the dance floor, you pick up the cue and then you can go back to the balcony. Is that correct?
I mean, in any given area, at minimum, tell me have even more to say. Like, there's more to say about, like, given a certain kind of project, what is some evidence that I need to really reevaluate things? But at the level of generality we were talking before, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi, thanks for the talk.
Can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I have hobbies that I'm really passionate about, but I've never found a career that matched. I was curious if you have advice for how to extract the essential qualities out of those hobbies and find a career that fit me.
What's an example of one of the hobbies?
The two most relevant ones are fantasy football and strategic board games.
What was the first one?
Fantasy football.
All right, well, I'm sure there's YouTubers who get millions of views giving people insights about fantasy football. So, like, there's definitely a career path. It might not be a good fit for you, but and the second one was?
Board games.
Board games. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I mean, there's authors who, I read a book once about a journalist who went underground to the competitive world of Scrabble and, wrote a book about it. And it had a great twist ending where he won at the end. Or no, I'm mixing that up with a book on memory. But in any case, ironically. So I'm not going to give you all of the possibilities, but they're like the.
Let's make who has an idea for a career path for someone who likes board games or fantasy football? Any ideas? Yeah. Yeah. Debbie? Design board games. Yeah, they're like game labs. I've been to a game lab where they design new board games. Yeah.
There's a business near where I live called House of Games or something like that, and they have every type of board game thing imaginable, and they host events and leagues and stuff like that, and people come there and play games.
More ideas on fantasy football, yeah? Cafe with board games, that was going to be the theme. I mean, if you continue to do this, you will find there's endless ideas on what you can do with it. It's just a matter of going out, being serious about, this is what I want to do. I'm not going to do anything else. And just learning more about all the opportunities. I don't know if any of those ideas kind of make any sense to you, but there's no end to the possibilities.
Thank you.
Run an idea party,
But
as we call it.
let me add one other kind of perspective on it. So those were kind of two concrete subjects that you're interested in. But part of what Tal was talking about earlier is you're thinking about what is it that interests me in them? What kind of way of using my mind, or what kind of problem solving, or what kind of interactions with other people? So it doesn't have to remain at the concrete level of those concretes. It can go to a more abstract level on what is it about those, and then can I find that in other areas?
That's very powerful, because it's the essence of that type of work that you can what looks like that in other domains that I can do that will give you the same kind of interest, the same kind of satisfaction.
My question is with regards to balance. I'm a very conflicted person, and there's two aspects of my life that I have a hard time reconciling. One, and this has been since I was a kid, one is the idea of being a Howard Rourke, being the best in the world and devoting all your attention to one thing and making it as good as you can possibly make it before you die.
But why does it have to be the best in the world?
Maybe not the best in the world.
Have you ever heard our Howard Rourke say, I want to be the best architect in the world?
It's true, yeah.
What?
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, he wants to be the best he can be.
Right.
Okay.
Which is, correct.
No, it's important.
It's a very important distinction, yes. And that's what I'm getting at, being the best architect that you can be.
Yeah.
And that's a concept I've been obsessed with since I was a little kid, and I watched Dragon Ball Z and wanted to be the greatest fighter in the universe, and that hasn't changed. But on the other hand, I've also been obsessed with this idea of the Renaissance man, and one who is proficiently skilled in a number of different areas. And historically, the Renaissance man would be someone who can write well and ride a horse well and fight, and that doesn't matter as much. And I have a hard time. I currently have between 3 and 6 occupations, depending on how you count them. These are areas that are either I'm making money from or I will be making money from in the near future. And I have a hard time knowing how to balance it all and knowing where to put my energy so that I'm not leaving things that I want and will make me happy on the table.
Can I ask you a question? Which one do you enjoy most now? Just
martial arts.
Great. That's it. The thing that we do, we rationalize, we overthink, but I want to do this, and I'm thinking this is important, and I read a book about it, and so on and so forth. Pay attention to what you are enjoying. Joy, just pure joy of the doing, is what you want to go after, not the idea of a joy. I mean, I would love to write like Dawn. It would be amazing. I sit down and I try it. It's torture. Okay? So I have many ideas of what will be meaningful in my life, but the experience of trying to do it is not that good. So pay attention to the things you enjoy. Pay attention to the things where the time passes without you noticing. So I think there's a sense of rationalism in this. I want to be It's a Renaissance man. I want to do this and I want to do that. Why? The only purpose, this function called life, is about joy. It's about the state of non-contradictory joy. So can you find an occupation that encompasses a lot of interests, that gives you a joy that you lose time doing? And that's the thing. That's the thing. Now it evolves over time and you get bored of some aspects of it and so on and so forth. But don't have a preconception that I want to do this. There are 6 things I want to do right now. Right? Just pay attention to the experience.
But I greatly enjoy a couple of things.
Amazing. So one could be your central purpose. One could be an amazing hobby. One could be put aside for a while until it's going to be so... Look, I always have too many things I want to do. Always. What I call value domain map is too full with the time I have in a day. I have to decide consciously not to pursue things after I make a decision that this thing that is on my map is less joy, brings me less joy right now than this thing that is not going to be pursued. So it's the limitation of time and energy.
Thank you.
This is in regards to the point you made about people who create things that have no customers, have no audience. In the Fountainhead, there was moments when it seemed like no one wanted to buy Howard Roark's buildings. How can you tell the difference between the fact that you're focusing on something that has no customers and you're just rationalizing its value, as opposed to just not having found the right customers yet?
It's a really hard problem. In fact, I was helped Gina Gorlin edit a piece on exactly this for her Substack, because she has some really interesting thoughts. And her fundamental answer was, if you build the muscle of intellectual honesty with yourself, and really seeking, like, am I BSing myself, or is this really the truth? And you're rigorous about that as a way of life. That's kind of the most fundamental thing that you can be doing, because it is easy to lie to yourself about those things. But if you're genuinely interested in what's true, like, you'll get the kind of signals. And if you think about the Fountainhead, it's really relevant that the architect that Roark most admired is, like, pointing out, like, yeah, this is really good, this isn't good at all. And it's also really relevant that it's not that Roark's getting no positive feedback from reality. He's getting hired by architecture firms, and the pushback he's getting is, yeah, we don't like your independent ideas, but he's still getting hired. And then he gets early customers. Like, very soon, he finds actual buyers for his product that's kind of like, all right, yeah, my kind of client is out there. They just need to find me. They need to catch up and understand what I'm doing. So he's getting feedback from reality that there's a potential market there that values what he's doing. If he was 40 and still hadn't had a client, but he's like, well, the world just doesn't see what a genius I am, I'd be a little bit more skeptical of Howard Roark.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for the talk. So quick question. I think it kind of relates to the question that was asked earlier, but suppose you're doing a job, you're respected, you're in the mastery phase, right? You think this is it, right? But then learning curves exist, right? It's always sometimes more exciting to start doing something. Maybe you kind of accelerate and you're good at it. You hit a roadblock or some sort of a barrier, and you have to power through it, right? And then at that point, one of the potential inclinations to say, well, actually, this thing itself is actually not what I want to do, as a way of avoiding putting in the mastery sort of. But also it could be the case that it might not be interesting. And so even in the sort of Renaissance man example, right? Sometimes I think, hey, it's better to be the jack of all trades, because if you kind of it's sort of like a way of avoiding mastering one thing, right? You're sort of shifting between different things. But on the other hand, I can make the case that, like, I do have the value of, like, enjoying doing different things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think you're pointing to something very deep, and I don't know that's exactly what your question is, but I want to point at it. If you're pursuing a true value, and things get tough, and you give up, think about what your alternatives are, right? You have an alternative of pushing through this, going through a horrible year where you're doing something that you don't like in order to make progress, or forever develop the self-reputation of someone that says, I'm not serious. There's a great book called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield, where he says, look, you can choose to be a pro. It's hard, scary, risky, tough. You have to show up every day, rain or shine, go to the court, practice over and over and over, even when you don't want to. That's living like a pro. And there's the amateur life. I'm an amateur. When it gets rough, I'm like, go be an amateur. It's fun. It's not risky. It's comfortable. Why not be an amateur? And he has this analogy that I love, and I think he doesn't develop it all the way. He says, the price of being an amateur is living in a shadow. And I always ask myself, okay, that's not enough. A shadow of what? And I think what he means is the shadow of what you know is possible to you. And you will forever live in a shadow of what you could have been if you just had the mastery and pushed through and did whatever needs to be done in order to do it. In order, even going to and working in a quarry for a while, right? And doing things you couldn't believe that you have to do in order to get there. Yep. And but this is developing a pro mindset. I just know what the price is. I'm not willing to pay the price again of living in the shadow. And I will go practice every day, jump out of bed, just not to be an amateur in my own mind. Because this is what self-esteem is all about.
And just a quick follow-up, because I think it's related to your point. So is there a limit or a theoretical limit in terms of how good you can be? Because you can say, you said, do you need to be the best in the world or the best that you can be? But I make the case that you could challenge anybody to be like, can you be better than what you are today?
Again, for me, it's a little rationalistic because the whole thing is, are you enjoying it?
I am, but you could be even better.
It doesn't matter. Are you enjoying it? Are you enjoying being that good? And when it stops being joyful, ask yourself, how can I enjoy it more? Even if it means being a little better. Yeah. But it's always this comparative mindset of like, am I the best? Am I better than him, better than that? Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? For what? For what purpose? For enjoyment. Do you enjoy what you do? Are you smiling? Are you motivated? Are you jumping out of bed? Are you motivated to go learn another thing, do it, expand what you're doing? If the answer is yes, you're doing something right. And don't think about it. This is like a second-handed way of thinking about it, which is it good enough? Am I better? Am I the best I could be? That is not the purpose. The purpose is, am I enjoying what I'm doing here, now, and am I building it into the future? And yes, there will be, paths where you're like, I'm not enjoying it, but I know I have to go do it because this is where I want to be. Mm-hmm. So just think about, and the way we use words is really impactful because it affects the way we feel about things, right? So the way we formulate it. And so you say, am I the best I could be? It's like, no, it's not. It's almost like second-handedness, but within you, which is, no, am I enjoying the path? Am I enjoying the process?
But there is, am I growing?
Am I moving forward? Yes.
But that's very connected to, am I enjoying it? Like, there's not really enjoying a career long-term where you're not growing. Yeah. So, but it's different from having my duty is to be the best I can be. Am I the best? Like, that's not a legitimate question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
This question might be a little related to what was just spoken of, but I was going to ask you to comment on a role for competitiveness or competition. Like my personal context, as a young person, I took it above harder than average if I lost at a board game or in sports. And now in business, I don't gloat over those that I've outperformed, and I try to draw inspiration from those that perform higher than me. But so in the positive, I see it as a motivator to be the best I can be. But sometimes it does reduce my happiness or ability to enjoy the moment when there's a project I want to do and I lose out to someone else and then I don't get to do the project.
I think competition can be a real positive and a real but what you want to be watchful of is, my motivation for being here to prove something through competition. Like, I don't like business, but I like being the best, and let me, out-invest the people or grow the bit. But if it's, I'll tell you, I love writing. What gets me out of bed in the morning is to sit and create a piece of writing that matters to me. And in particular, I love writing books. And so I decided, I want to write, I've had this idea of I wanted to write a book on the objectivist ethics. But the thing that really juiced it to the point where I started writing is I heard somebody praise what I thought was a garbage book on the objectivist ethics. And I said, they think that's good. Wait till they see what I'm going to give them. And so if it's a spice in that way, I think it's really legitimate. But if you're basing your self-esteem on it or your whole orientation in a field, then it can be problematic.
I always think about tennis players who get to be 871 in the world. And if you ask them, would you do it all over again? They would say, of course. I mean, what was the alternative, right? So you motivate yourself, but the thing itself is what I want to do, regardless if I'm going to be number 1 or number 800 in the world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, the decision to play tennis should be, I love playing tennis. Yeah. But as a professional, your goal is, I want to be number 1. Like, because that's what tennis is. It's the game to compete to be the best. Like, so that kind of dynamic. All right, we're out of time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.